So no chat on screen today, guys. Sorry about that for anybody who's usually used to seeing the chat. This is for the people who are watching later. Okay. Peg is here for support. You can probably see, at least on a happier note, I have Polyphemus. And Bill, composer of great music, which is so great. And they are very, very soft. And they are very, very comfy. These were made by Shadow. I can't remember your YouTube handle. I pretty much only just remember you as Shadow on Discord. They went on their own Odyssey. They were initially supposed to be here on the 14th and only arrived yesterday. It was ridiculous. They were here, and then they were gone, and then they were here. And just good things. Yeah, Mary, we can try and diagnose OBS later. I think part of the problem was I initially tried to start it on my laptop, and every time I tried to start a new stream, it was just hell in a handbasket. And also, OBS is a piece of shit. And like every time it updates, I mean, mind you, OBS crashes basically every time I use it. Every time when I close it out, it's crashed. It's a complete mess. Yes, they did go on their own Odyssey, and they're super cute. And the big thing right now is I gotta keep them away from any dogs. Peg will probably leave them alone, but Bennett I don't trust. Normally I have them living up on my bookcase, but I figured I need to show them off because they're so cute. I will also say the cord to which my phone is using to connect to my main computer is courtesy of Draco, the super long cord, which I deeply appreciate and is proving extremely useful, although you also sent me a 3-pack, which was even better. Yes, may OBS be cursed to Tartarus for eternity. Hold on. I need to check on what Bennett's doing because I don't entirely trust him. My emotional support dog, Cyclops, and sheep. It's true. Bennett! Benny boy, what are you doing? Get over here. I'm going to shut the door to my bedroom. I don't intend... He's mostly begging for food. Oh, do you want to come ups? Oh, do you want to come ups? For those who don't know, this is Bennett. Bennett is my brother's dog. He is a Cocker Spaniel. We call him Benelaus, or Benelaus, because he is an absolute himbo, in that he's super pretty and super sweet and not very bright. He is the Kronk to Peg's Yzma. Yeah, he is a former show dog, which explains everything. And he's just a very sweet little boy. Don't you dare. Don't you dare. Don't. No. No. No, 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 no. Relax. Relax. No. As I said, very cute, also very dumb. Bennett. Thank you. Hey. Down. Off. What has Jean-Marc trained you? Come here. No. No, no. Lie down. Come here. Come here, you very pretty and very dumb boy. It's not a ball. It's not a ball. Come here. His ears are very wet. Come here. Just relax. Relax, kiddo. Relax, please. Here. Don't. I'm sure you're getting all of his snuffles and snarfles. Emily, who's Hugh Bailey? Did Hugh Bailey design OBS? They can share a cell together. Bennett. That's enough. Thank you. You gonna lie down now? Find your place. Peg is over here just off camera. You done? Oh, excuse you. Okay. But allows if not ball, why ball shaped? I mean, true. There's a guy behind OBS. They can share a cell. That's what I've decided. Okay. Let me pull up my notes here for Odyssey Book 12. I'm about as peeved as Helios was when he found out his cows got touched. No touchy the cows. As we know. This is a big no-no. We do not touch the cows. Of course, we're going to watch them touch the cows in this one because we never said the crew was always that bright. We never really said anyone was that bright. Do you want to go back down? What's the deal, Bennett? He doesn't really know what to do. Again, so cute, so dumb. Let's get down to book 12 here. Okay, many things. We're gonna do quite a few things. Touch the cows. We're gonna go through many things. We gotta bury Alpinor. We gotta go through the Sirens. We gotta talk about clashing rocks. We gotta do Scylla and Charybdis, and then we gotta do cows. A lot's happening in this chapter. This is pretty much the end of Odysseus telling his story. So this is the last book that, don't you dare, he himself narrates. For God's sake, why don't you... Excuse you. Lie down. Thank you. Oh, he's fine. He's putting up protest. You're fine. Okay, good. All right. Because that took so long to get started, are you all right? Yeah, you're fine. Okay. Here ends the Great Yap. Yep, this is the last chapter of the Great Yappening. The greatest yappening that ever yapped. Peg does not care. Are you okay? You need to calm down. Yeah, you got the hiccups. You need to calm down. Okay, okay. All right. We're going to book 12. Yes, then Ithaca time. Literally the next book is called Ithaca at Last. Like, we get it. Like, please. Oh my God. So, book 12. The Cattle of the Sun. Oh, Agnes. I know you can't wait for the suitors. You're not going to have a fun time, though. For those who don't know, Agnes is our resident lover of the trash can suitors, especially Amphinomus, for some reason that I cannot fathom. And I tease her relentlessly about it. Forever. Forever. This is an ongoing, almost running gag in the Discord, as she will say something. And my Agnes senses tingle, like a spidey sense, and I roll up like, Agnes! What did you say? Oh, the swineherd. For some reason here, Brennan Lee Mulligan. You'll have to tell me which Brennan Lee Mulligan voice you're thinking of. I don't know if I could imitate it, but I think you mean Eumaeus, who's the swineherd. Anyway. Cupcake frosting soundtrack. Oh, thanks. That sounds fun. All right. Yeah, I heard Agnes was talking some bullshit. Agnes, really, you do have suitorphilia. Okay, book 12. The Kettle of the Sun. Yes, you're an iPad baby, but I cannot turn on the iPad for you. Don't huff at me. If, for those who don't know, Bennett is an absolute iPad baby. He will watch Bluey and Blue's Clues and anything on the iPad. He is deeply obsessed with screens. That might be my fault. It's fine. Book 12. The Cattle of the Sun. Now, when our ship had left the ocean river rolling in her wake and launched out into open sea with its long swells to reach the island of Aeaea, east where the dawn, forever young, has home and dancing rings and the sun his risings, heading in, we beached our craft on the sands. Are you all right, kiddo? I think you're okay now. Sorry. He's just strange. Bless. Bless his heart. Heading in, we beached our craft on the sands. The crews swung out on the low, sloping shore, and there we fell asleep, awaiting dawn's first light. As soon as dawn with her rose-red fingers shone again, I dispatched some men to Circe's halls to bring the dead Elpenor's body. We cut logs in haste, and out on the island's sharpest jutting headland held his funeral rites in sorrow, streaming tears. Once we'd burned the dead man and the dead man's armor, heaping his grave mound, hauling a stone that copped it well. We planted his balanced oar aloft to crown his tomb. Yes, rosy fingers. Note, there is bingo. If we get a bingo, I'll give her a carrot and I'll find something maybe that he'll eat. I'll give him a training treat. He likes those. So yes, do note there is bingo, an updated bingo from last time. Same rules apply. If you think you've got bingo, it's got to be verified by a mod. And so we saw to his rights, each step in turn. Nor did our coming back from death escape Circe. She hurried toward us, decked in rich regalia, handmaids following close with trays of bread and meats galore, and glinting ruddy wine. And the lustrous goddess, standing in our midst, hailed us warmly. Ah, my darling, reckless friends, you who ventured down to the house of death alive, doomed to die twice over. Others die just once. Come, take some food and drink some wine. Rest here the livelong day. And then tomorrow, at daybreak, you must sail. And I will set you a course and chart each sea mark, so neither on sea nor land will some new trap ensnare you in trouble, make you suffer more. Are you okay? I think you do this for attention. Food from Circe. She's safe now. We already got over the Xenia issue. Her foresight won our fighting spirits over. So all that day, till the sun went down, we sat and feasted on sides of meat and heady wine. And then, when the sun had set and the night came on, the men lay down to sleep by the ship's stern cables. But Circe, taking me by the hand, drew me away from all my shipmates there and sat me down, and lying beside me, probed me for details. I told her the whole story, start to finish, and the queenly goddess laid my course. Sir, do I need to take you off the couch? No, okay. Your descent to the dead is over, true, but listen closely to what I tell you now, and the gods themselves will bring it back to mind. First, you will raise the island of the Sirens, those creatures who spellbind any man alive, whoever comes their way, whoever draws too close, off guard, and catches the Sirens' voices in the air. No sailing home for him, no wife rising to meet him, no happy children beaming up at their father's face. The high, thrilling song of the Sirens will transfix him, lolling there in their meadow, round them heaps of corpses, rotting away, rags of skin shrivelling on their bones. Race straight past that coast, soften some beeswax, and stop your shipmates' ears so none can hear. None of the crew. But if you are bent on hearing, have them tie your hand and foot in the swift ship, erect at the mast block, lashed by ropes to the mast, so you can hear the Sirens' song to your heart's content. But if you plead, commanding your men to set you free, then they must lash you faster, rope on rope. Oh yeah, Circe's totally calling him out. She's like, I get the feeling you're a bit of a dumbass, so if you must hear the Siren song, here's how you do it without dying. Does "and God himself" refer to Zeus, line 43? Yeah. Yeah, she's basically referring to Zeus. Especially because the word Zeus and like Deus, Theos, very similar. So yes, we are referring to Zeus. So sad having to give a good boy back after puppy sitting. He's going to be happy for his dad to come. But once your crew is rowed you past the Sirens, a choice of routes is yours. I cannot advise you which to take, or lead you through it all. You must decide for yourself. On one side, beetling cliffs shoot up, and against them pound the huge roaring breakers of blue-eyed Amphitrite. So, blue-eyed Amphitrite. Amphitrite, this is the goddess of the sea. She is the wife and queen of Poseidon. She is the mother of Triton. Now, she is known to be one of the 50 Nereids, these daughters of Nereus and Doris. Hesiod says that she's one of them. Yes, Poseidon's wife. But, and Nereus, in case you're curious, is the son of Pontus and Gaia, and then Doris, her mother is said to be an Oceanid, daughter of Oceanus and Tethys. Now, Apollodorus says she's not only a Nereid, she's also an Oceanid. I have questions. I don't know. Apollodorus is weird. Now, she's said to be the mother or creator of both seals and dolphins, and was said that she could send great waves that would crash against rocks, and this would put sailors at great risk. So like Poseidon, she can give cool things. She could also destroy you. Again, she's, queen of the sea, alongside Poseidon, the god of the sea. She's the goddess of the sea, so she's kind of like him, can represent this duality, this tumultuous nature that it has. Now, there are quite a few versions as to how Poseidon managed to, woo her to get her to marry him. But ultimately, it usually ends with her having dipped away from him, running away from him, and he sends, a whole bunch of creatures to, go and convince her. And one creature in particular is a dolphin. And that's ultimately kind of what helps convince her to be Poseidon's bride. And as far as we know, they seem to have a pretty solid marriage. Yes, he goes off and has affairs and what have you, but she doesn't seem to give a shit. Amphitrite created. So Nam B&B. Kinda, because part of it also ties into that story of how he wooed her. There's a version where it was a very specific dolphin that convinced, and I think that's where you get the constellation Delphinus. But it kind of depends on who you read, and it's a bit of a rabbit hole you run down. But yes. Fun fact, that's what her name means. From the Amphi, from both sides, tremble, she who causes trembling all around. Ooh, we love that. Does Amphitrite also have affairs? Not that I can think of. Her most notable child is Triton, who she has with Poseidon. If she does, we don't really have any stories about it. I'm not sure. Technically healthy marriage. Look, they both have an understanding of each other, it seems. Like, it's like everybody always goes that, like, Hades, the number one dude, because he's monogamous. I'm like, well, Amphitrite and Poseidon, I mean, he's ultimately not monogamous. He goes off and sleeps with other people and has other children, but she doesn't seem to care. I mean, unless you go down the infamous rabbit hole we'll have to talk about in a bit related to Scylla, that, if Mariana were here, could tell you, led to me having an explosion. Anybody who's in the Discord on that day remembers that. Does that make Percy Jackson Ariel's uncle? Okay. Ariel, no. Ariel's a Disney creation. No. No, and Ariel is named Ariel after a Shakespeare character. So, no. Yeah, Amphitrite, very loyal. Super chill about Poseidon being a man-sloot. She's just like, whatever. You do you. Like, and honestly, to me, I go, well, that's fine. Look, if she doesn't care, then she doesn't care. Cool, seems you guys had a pretty solid marriage. You guys understood what was up with each other, and you were fine about it. When did this work? Oh, after many tries, Sergio. To the point, obviously, as you can probably tell, there's no chat on screen because I was tired of fussing with OBS. Triton having daughters was a thing. Triton, I'm sure, like, whether or not Triton had children, yes, but the Disney's Little Mermaid Ariel is an invention by Disney based off of Hans Christian Andersen's fairy tale that he wrote so many centuries later and was not tied to Greek mythology. So, discussing ancient Greek cheating, bingo. I guess that would count as ancient Greek cheating. This is so many attempts. I got tired of working with OBS, and I'll have to figure it out later why it's being a doik. Oh, it was a joke. I'm sorry. It's okay, little riot. Hey, everyone's got. Yeah, hey, look, it's okay. It is okay. Yes. Yeah, and again, a number of children that some of these characters, like Triton or even like Nereus and others that they have, like the numbers will differ, the names will differ. It's a big depends on who you read. Yeah, I'm so sorry, Sergio. Yes, so many attempts. I was literally on the verge of tears. Where were we? Yeah, so Amphitrite. I think that was all I had for her. But yeah, so basically, goddess of the sea. Both awesome and terrifying, kind of like Poseidon. The clashing rocks, they're called by all the blissful gods. And we're stopping again because we need to talk about the clashing rocks. So what we seem to be talking about here, these clashing rocks, though it's not totally confirmed by Homer, these are implied to either be or were at least being inspired by these things called the Symplegades. Now, Symplegades actually directly translates to clashing rocks. I believe in here, the words Homer uses that are translated here as clashing rocks are actually mean something closer to wandering rocks, but it seems this is what he's pulling from. And he's going to talk, because especially this little bit that's going to follow afterwards, the Symplegades are these famous crashing rocks. They feature very prominently in the story of Jason and the Argonauts. I think even in the Aeneid as well, but the Aeneid likes to steal from tons of different Greek myth. They were said to be so dangerous that even the doves that would bring like the ambrosia to Zeus could get caught between them. And it was part of how Jason and the Argonauts sort of tried to gauge how fast they would need to go to get through them without getting smashed. And so they managed to get through barely. Like the back bit, tiniest back bit of the Argo actually gets smashed and kind of destroyed, but they get very lucky. One, they have Orpheus giving them the tune. If I recall, he's still there with them at that point. They do, I believe, still have Heracles on their side. Because again, some of these heroes are with the Argonauts, but they kind of depart before they even reach Colchis. So I'm pretty sure they're both still there at the same time. And then also Hera sends them a bit of help to get through. Otherwise, it would have been big smash and true pancakes, sea pancakes. But these seem to be what Homer is referring to here, even though he uses technically different words. He does seem to be talking about the Symplegades. Again, they feature in quite a few myths. Even like Scylla and Charybdis, the Sirens, these are all things that feature in other myths. So we're kind of going through some pretty well-known like mythological dangers. Oh yeah, Heracles gets constantly separated from the Argonauts. Like he's there and then he's just not there like every few chapters. And I'm like, he's a busy man. He's doing other shit, constantly distracted. Oh my God, Becca. Thank you. New laptop GoFundMe. I know. No, I was like, the new laptop was going to happen. And then I was like, oh, I have to get new figure skating boots. And then I hurt myself and I was like, shit, I'm going to have to go through PT. Though now I'm like, I don't need to go through PT. I have all the old paperwork from my old PT. I know the program. I'm not spending like $300 to $500 twice a week to go through PT because my insurance is terrible. But yes, we'll call that the laptop fund. Not even birds can escape them. No, not even the doves that veer and fly ambrosia home to Father Zeus. Even of those, the sheer rocks always pick off one, and Father wings one more to keep the number up. No ship of man has ever approached and slipped past. Always some disaster. Big timbers and sailors' corpses. Judos, this is the voice that I gave to Circe prior, so I'm just maintaining it, hence the probably really offensive British accent. One ship alone, one deep-sea craft sailed clear, the Argo, sung by the world when heading home from Aeetes' shores, and she would have crashed against those giant rocks and sunk at once if Hera, for love of Jason, had not sped her through. Okay, so he's saying at this point it was when he was on the way home, so Orpheus would have been gone by that point, and Heracles would have been kind of long gone from it as well. Why is Circe saying she can't advise Odysseus which route to take when one route always kills everyone except when Hera helped? She's about to give him the other option being Scylla and Charybdis, and even within that there's a choice. She's saying, look, you're kind of screwed. Like, you don't have a good way to go. Pick which danger you want to go through. Because it's ultimately, the choice is going to ultimately be his. Is sort of what she's saying. Like, you want to push your luck? Sure, try that, I guess. I think she's partially going, I'm acknowledging you're a dumbass and might consider this an option. So I can't tell you what to do, but don't frickin' do this. Ah, well, thank you, Birchwood. Oh, yes, is this the Discord? I'm going to pin this. Pin the message. The Discord is being pinned up in there if you want to join our little chaos. We talk about all sorts of things in there, including book club and Greek myth and all the like. Yeah, how many men are you willing to lose to get home? Yeah, and potentially the ship and everything else. Good sleepy boy. Because now we're going to hear about the other option, which is on the other side loom two enormous crags. One thrusts into the vaulting sky its jagged peak, hooded round with a dark cloud that never leaves. No clear bright air can ever bathe its crown, not even in summer's heat or harvest time. No man on earth could scale it, mount its crest, not even with 20 hands and 20 feet for climbing, the rocks so smooth, like dressed in burnished stone. And halfway up that cliffside stands a fog-bound cavern, gaping west toward Erebus. Erebus, we've mentioned, of course, being kind of like eternal darkness, gazing out towards the end. Realm of death and darkness. Past it, great Odysseus, you should steer your ship. No rugged young archer could hit that yawning cave with a winged arrow shot from off the decks. Scylla lurks inside it, the yelping horror, yelping no louder than any suckling pup, but she's a grisly monster, I assure you. So Scylla, obviously a legendary monster, known for having the top half of a woman and 6 dog forms, like springing from her bottom half, sometimes saying from her thighs, and she forms one half of this strait of Scylla and Charybdis. You will see in other imagery, sometimes she does seem to have a sort of tail on the end of her behind, but the bottom half being dogs. Yes, yelping is very much, I can't speak to the Greek. I'm pretty sure it's something like this in the Greek, but Fagles is being very deliberate and saying, yeah, this is what we got. Dog-headed Scylla, as it should be. It wasn't her fault. Well, that's interesting, Agnes. You say, as if it wasn't her fault. Here's the interesting thing. Now, Scylla, Her parentage kind of varies among sources, but both Homer and Apollodorus, as we're going to see here, name her mother someone named Crataeis, of which we know very little about Crataeis. We kind of know her name, and that's sort of about it. And a father is almost never listed for Scylla. If it ever is, I haven't really been able to find a consistent name, and even then, it's just sort of like we really don't know anything about her parentage. She's just kind of there. Oh God, Becca, why are you saying hear me out? Why is there a hear me out? That always makes me nervous. What does no rugged young archer could hit that yawning cave with a winged arrow off the decks mean? Basically, if an archer were standing on the deck of his ship and were trying to aim at the cave, it was in such a position and kind of at such a point that nobody would be able to make that shot. Not even the best archer. Like, it's just frankly too sheer a cliff face. You can't make the shot in. So, forgive me for the stupid question. There are no stupid questions. But do the dogs have incredibly long necks to reach men, or do they have a different method? Anxiety tea leaves. That is not a dumb question at all. It's never made very specific, and in some of the imagery you will see that the dogs seem to have kind of long necks. We're not entirely sure, because it's not often you get Scylla described in like minute full detail, so you're kind of left to a lot of imagery of Scylla, and sometimes they are shown to have maybe slightly longer necks, which yes, is extremely unnerving. So that's not at all a dumb question, that's a great question, and it kind of comes down to how they visualized the bottom half in art. Oh God, Becca, the Scylla description. Oh jeez. Yeah, Edith Hamilton. So for those who don't know, Edith Hamilton has a book called Mythology, which in terms of a modern sort of encyclopedia source, I think is a pretty solid and great source. Grew serpents. Yeah, serpents are sometimes aligned with this. Oftentimes I usually see with the tail, but it's kind of like serpent necks, dog heads. Again, it depends on who you read and also really what ancient art you're looking at. Is it a painting? Is it a sculpture? Like, you never really know what you're going to get, but it's pretty horrifying. Bread, I think we did mention. Wine Dark Sea, I don't think we did. Sounds neat. It's pretty wild. So, now, the most well-known story of Scylla beyond, being part of this strait of Scylla and Charybdis, and it is sometimes pronounced Scylla. I say Scylla, that's how I learned how to say it, but it probably is pronounced with a hard K, so Scylla. Her most well-known myth outside of, existence in the strait is the transformation into this monster, implying that she was not born this way. And the most famous version, of course, comes from the Roman poet Ovid. But, and this is a big but, there is a version from a writer known as Hyginus in his work, The Fabulae. Now, Hyginus is a Latin writer, and he did write in Latin. However, he makes it very clear in his work, The Fabulae, which is sort of, some people might call it a lesser man's version of the Bibliothecae by Apollodorus. It said that, his retellings of the myths are a little crude, and some of them are pretty different from what you'll see in other sources. The Ovid bit is actually, it's Roman. But the interesting thing with Hyginus is he makes it pretty clear in his Fabulae. He is dealing with Greek mythology. There's very little Roman mythology mentioned in it. So Hyginus exists in this really interesting space. Now, if we go by Hyginus, who again kind of gets to straddle the Roman-Greek line and one of the few who does, his story of how Scylla became this monster does involve, like Ovid, the story of Glaucus and Circe. So according to Hyginus, this Greek sea god Glaucus fell in love with Scylla, but she was kind of like whatever about him. And meanwhile, Circe fell in love with Glaucus and was super mad that he wasn't into her, but was instead into Scylla. And she was so jealous about this and so angry at being spurned by Glaucus in favor of Scylla, that one day she saw Scylla bathing in the seas, and she took a potion she had made and poured it into the waters, and that is what caused Scylla's transformation. So Ovid has a kind of similar version. I think there's some of the details that differ, but I at least was like, you know what, we'll talk about the Hyginus version because, again, he exists in this really interesting space where, yeah, he's a Latin writer and he's writing in Latin, but he seems to have made a point to say, I'm talking about Greek mythology, versus Ovid, who's not necessarily like that. So again, that's And there's also the fact that while, again, he's pulling from a lot of, Latin-based sources, he does seem to, again, make a point of saying this is Greek mythology. And there must have been potentially some variant of this that could have existed prior to him. So, yes. I'm pretty sure we have a Roman source square on there. You can bring up the great... Oh, okay, we got to talk about then the Great Rabbit Hole. Okay, I did mention with Amphitrite, there was a great rabbit hole, and this rabbit hole has to do with Scylla. And that is because there is a writer known as Servius, or Servius, if we do his proper classical Latin pronunciation, which, yes, V is pronounced like W. It makes everybody laugh. Servius wrote what is known as a commentarii, a commentaries on the Aeneid by Virgil. And in it, he seemed to imply, or he not even seemed to imply, he wrote specifically that it was because of Poseidon that Scylla was turned into a monster. Now, he only mentions Poseidon, and he mentions Glaucus, and it seems almost that Servius is implying that it's Poseidon who changed her into this monster because, I don't know, she didn't pick him, but she doesn't seem to have picked Glaucus either. So it's really vague. But also, we don't really know where Servius got this idea from. Prior to his writing that down, we don't have an account that says anything about that. And for anybody who knows Ovid and the metamorphoses from which we get that story about Scylla and Circe and Glaucus, if you know anything about that, it is a highly anti-authoritarian work, and given that is also where you get the idea that Medusa was a human woman who got turned into a gorgon because she was essayed by Neptune, all of that jazz. Like, you would think Ovid would want to go the route of having Neptune be the one who changes Scylla, but he doesn't. He chooses the Circe and the Glaucus route. Now, this is where we fall even further down the rabbit hole, because I had seen, and for this, I am going to call out the website, what are they called, Theoi.com, I'm calling them out, because they claimed Amphitrite is the one who changed her. However, where they got that from is a medieval writer who I want to strangle with my bare hands, named something like Tzetzes, or Tzetzes, T-Z-E-T-Z-E-S, T-Z-E, T-Z-E-S. I think that's how you spell it. And he decided to do his own interpretation of the Servius commentaries and another piece of work, and claimed that, oh, obviously it's Amphitrite who changed her. According to him, this medieval writer, and we are we are after the Battle of Hastings, guys. Like, the Normans have already invaded England level of medieval late. So it's like, bro, where do you get off? Where do you get off? When I tell you my experience with Mariana down that rabbit hole, because we were both checking the Latin and trying to figure out what was going on, tables were flipped. I was losing my mind. It's a deep rabbit hole. So no one, and what the hell, we have all the writers here. It's everyone's fault. Won't someone think of the scholars? The scholars can be interesting when you get to the ancient scholars. So in Greece, you have these scholias, which are similar to the commentarii in Rome. It's essentially academics writing academic analysis on these existing works. Kind of what gets done today, but the ancient version now. Tzetzes is being a dick and making up his own version. He's also interpreting a Hellenistic text that's really weird and wild and even makes my head spin, and I just prefer not to think about it. So yeah, that's the rabbit hole that Amphitrite was unintentionally involved in. Is Amphitrite directly related in the changing of Scylla? No, we have no ancient source that tells us this, because not even Servius, who's making this strange claim that it's Neptune in his commentary on the Aeneid, in which none of this is talked about, trust me, I know, I checked both the English and the Latin, we don't know where this guy made it. This medieval writer got the freaking balls to blame Amphitrite for something where she's like, "Bish, I'm not involved." Just like, I'm not even here, okay? So yeah, the most famous version of how Scylla gets turned is directly related to Circe. Prior to Latin writers, I don't think we have a source on that. I don't even think Apollodorus talks about it, but if he does, but it's been a while since I looked at Apollodorus, so I could be wrong. Anywho, that is Scylla. She's got her own backstory there, which is so funny when we briefly talk about Charybdis, because we know even less. There's even less about Charybdis. Honestly, yeah, let Amphitrite chill. She was not the type, which is why I found that claim so weird. He's English. Is he English? Son of a bitch. Sorry to all the Brits in the chat. Ad lycophronem. Yeah, so the ad lycophronem, the lycophron, he's talking about a Hellenistic text. And trust me, Mariana and I dug into that. I was translation dependent. I think she was trying to look at it in the Greek, but it's Hellenistic, so it's got some serious quirks to it. There's nothing in there that says it's Amphitrite. It was so weird. I don't know. I think he was just trying to make sense of Servius's claim for like no reason. What is the reason? I know, he's a sweet boy. And Peg is snoring down over here. You can sort of see her booty. Oh, actually, that is her head. Yeah, but you can still sort of see her booty. As if it wasn't bad enough that Emily Wilson's from here. I know, you guys do have to bear the shame of Emily Wilson, and I'm so sorry. Oh, just be a good boy. Anyway, that's Scylla. I know. So much. Oh, I know. Good boy. You're a good boy. Okay, anyway. But she's a grisly monster, I assure you. No one could look on her with any joy, not even a god who meets her face to face. She has 12 legs, all writhing, dangling down, and 6 long swaying necks, a hideous head on each head barbed with a triple row of fangs, thick set, packed tight, and armed to the hilt with black death. So anxiety leaves that might help you. Yes, we imagine them as having kind of long necks. Again, she's wild looking. Holed up in the cavern's bowels from her waist down, she shoots out her heads out of that terrifying pit, angling right from her nest, wildly sweeping the reefs for dolphins, dogfish, or any bigger quarry she can drag from the thousands Amphitrite spawns in groaning seas. I saw the question. What does armed to the hilt with black death mean? It doesn't sound like it's meant to reference the plague, so what is black about this death? Black death meaning like just dark. Like all you would see is the shadow of it, and then you're dead. Like it's so, because Scylla is so quick, you often don't have time to realize. She gives like no hint that she's coming, and then all of a sudden she's there and she's going, snack. Taking my delightful man snacks, thank you. So no, good question. It's not plague. It's literally just like black death being like the fear, the terror, like, and the shadow, literally like a shadow of death, if you will. I volunteer my dogs for Scylla cosplay. So she's a German shepherd. I was gonna say, just imagine Peg on the end. The only hint you'd get would be a snort. Like a terrifying sea wolf, or a pack of them, really, yeah. Where was I? The Groaning Seas. No mariners yet can boast they've raced their ship past Scylla's lair without some mortal blow. With each of her 6 heads, she snatches up a man from the dark, proud craft and whisks him off. The other crag is lower, you will see, Odysseus, though both lie side by side, an arrow shot apart. So it's basically saying this strait is so narrow, it's the width of what you can shoot an arrow between. So it's meant to just say it's really narrow. You don't really have room to maneuver. You can't like try and shoot down the middle and avoid either side. Atop it, a great fig tree rises, shaggy with leaves, which we will have to hold on to because it's going to come back. Beneath it, awesome Charybdis gulps the dark water down. So, Charybdis, the other half of this strait, between Scylla and Charybdis being a phrase that essentially means between a rock and a hard place. This is our Kobayashi Maru, this is our no-win scenario. Snorts of doom, exactly. Frenchy Scylla, shaggy yoinks. So, Scylla, again, this large monster, this whirlpool that sits on the other side of the strait from Scylla. It was known to swallow in massive amounts of water before then just sort of belching it back out. And it was such that these currents around it were completely inescapable. Once you were in, you were fucked. It's just like, do you want to lose 6 men or do you want to risk everyone going down? Yeah, nobody, not even a god, could look on them with any joy. Yes, me, talking about the Wilson translations. Now, here's the interesting thing about Charybdis. I'm sure a lot of people want to know, like, what is Charybdis' parentage? Where did we get that? I'm like, we don't know. There is no Greek source that really gives us an answer. Charybdis is just a monster that exists. I do believe there are some Roman writers later who like to say that Charybdis is a daughter of Poseidon, of Neptune. I've had very great difficulty nailing down a source on that in terms of a Roman source, but a Greek source, I got nothing. I truly have nothing. I think there might have been a scholia that said that, or it was a commentarii. So, I mean, either way, I'm not sure. Basically, I was not able to really find a good source as to, like, Charybdis being said to be a daughter of either Neptune or Poseidon. In general, Charybdis doesn't have parentage. Charybdis is just like a monster that's there. And again, because Charybdis is essentially a whirlpool, it's just there. Also, Charybdis does not move. Let's make that very clear. Charybdis stays in place, stays in the strait, does not leave. The Hoover. They are not sisters. No, they are not related in any way. No, Scylla and Charybdis are not related. They are paired together because they are on either side of this strait, but they are not related in any way. And no teeth. There are no teeth in Charybdis. The danger are the currents and everything, and the power of the water that Charybdis is able to manipulate. Again, you didn't need teeth. That's scary enough to the Greeks because, again, sailing is a terrifying thing, especially when you have basically no wiggle room and nowhere to hide. They're neighbors in a shady block. Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much. They're like, I wouldn't even say they're opposite sides of a gang war because they don't really interact with each other. But if you are sailing through them, you're doomed in some way. How did Scylla and Charybdis get to this strait? They all seem to have... Well, Charybdis seems to have always been there. In terms of Scylla, I think it was that she fled there after her transformation. There's no real myth that states, like, how did they get here? Because also, where exactly this strait is located is up to great debate. Now, most people go with what Virgil said in the Aeneid. I think he said it's related near the Strait of, like, Cambria, like, specifically. But again, a lot of these locations don't really have real-life corresponding locations. So how they got there, we don't really know. With Charybdis, I think Charybdis was just always there. Yeah, with Charybdis being immobile, like not really able to move, seems Charybdis just like appeared there. And Scylla, we think, she probably fled there after the horrifying transformation she went through. They were straight mates. Anxiety tea leaves, that's good, but it would be spelled more like that. It's a strait, like a location. But yes, they were straight mates. That's funny. Please don't kill me. I'd like to ask how you got here. No, I don't. Exactly. Yeah, try and go and find out. Good job. Oh, Strait of Messina. Sorry, not Cambria. Yeah, Virgil claims it's this area known as the Strait of Messina. A lot of people tend to just roll with that because he's kind of one of the only people who gave a pretty specific location, but it is Virgil. Take him with a grain of salt because he's Virgil. Nah, I mean, look, I just like to shit on Virgil because I had to translate the Aeneid my final year of Latin and wanted to bash my head into a wall because it was so boring. But yeah, most of these, again, no real life location. Anyway. Charybdis. Ah, there we go. Charybdis gulps the dark water down. 3 times a day she vomits it up. 3 times she gulps it down. The terror. Don't be there when the whirlpool swallows down. Not even the earthquake god could save you from disaster. No. Hug Scylla's crag. Sail on past her. Top speed. Better by far to lose 6 men and keep your ship than lose your entire crew. And also you dumbass. Why can't Poseidon interfere with or help people with Charybdis? 1, he probably doesn't want to, but 2, it's saying that like her, like the way that she pulls in the water and belches it back out is to such a degree that it would take great effort. I mean, not that Poseidon's gonna help anyway. But it's also like if she sucks in the water and he doesn't let her belch it back out, then like the sea level is lowered. And it's like, why would he want that? It's just essentially, and also part of it is Circe's using a bit of hyperbole. She's basically trying to say, literally, you're screwed. Nobody can save you. Don't do Charybdis. And at this point, Odysseus has been kind of unsure as to whether it's Zeus who's after him or somebody else because he didn't believe Polyphemus. Yeah, he's gotten a bit of a wake-up call there. Does Charybdis do the tides? No, it's just this specific location. Charybdis is not linked with the tides, but it's just essentially saying that her current that she creates, again, the idea of a whirlpool, it's just like, oh, hell no. Hell no, no thanks. And doesn't really do waves. It's just really a spinning current. Waves, again, sending breaking waves, you're usually going to think Poseidon or Amphitrite for that. Where was I? Oh, yeah. Yes, yes. But tell me the truth now, goddess, I protested, because of course he protested. Deadly Charybdis. Can't I possibly cut and run from her and still fight Scylla off when Scylla strikes my men? At which point Circe looks at him like, bitch, have you been listening to a word I said? Yeah, of course Odie's like, but can I beat them? And she's just like, human men. So stubborn, the lovely goddess countered. Hell-bent yet again on battle and feats of arms. Can't you bow to the deathless gods themselves? Scylla's no mortal. She's an immortal devastation, terrible, savage, wild. No fighting her, no defense. Just flee the creature. That's the only way. Waste any time arming for battle beside her rock. I fear she'll lunge out again with all of her 6 heads and seize as many men. No. Row for your lives. Invoke brute force, I tell you. Scylla's mother. She spawned her to scourge mankind. She can stop the monster's next attack. Yeah, basically saying, no. Like, my creation, of course. Well, what's actually interesting here is she's saying that no, she was spawned that way, that she was born that way. So we can imply, again, that this idea of Scylla and being changed by Circe might be a later myth. It's not referenced here by Homer, which is interesting. Then you will make the island of Thrinacia, where herds of the sun god's cattle graze, and fat sheep, and 7 herds of oxen, as many sheep flocks, rich and woolly, 50 head in each. No breeding swells their number, nor do they die. And goddesses herd them on, nymphs with glinting hair, Phaetusa, Lampetie, born to the sun god Helios by radiant Neaera. Their queenly mother bred and reared them both, then settled them on the island of Thrinacia, their homeland, seas away, to guard their father's sheep and longhorn cattle. Could it possibly be that she chooses not to take credit for creating Scylla's? It could be, or it just could be it's a later myth. For now, at least when Homer's writing this down in the Archaic Age, and again, we're putting the writing of this at the very start of kind of the Archaic Age, it could be that Scylla was just sort of a monster, and maybe the idea that she was changed by Circe was a very localized myth that Homer wasn't aware of. Again, part of the thing of the localization of all of this. I don't know. That's a good question. So Helios, since we've mentioned him, the sun in Greek mythology, also known a bit as a kind of guardian of oaths, and the god of sight, which I find interesting because if you look directly into the sun, you ain't gonna have any eyesight. Typical Greeks not being able to resist meat. It's true. What do you mean you don't eat no meat? That's okay. That's okay. I make lamb. So Helios is the son of the Titans Hyperion and Theia. What's actually interesting is that former name Hyperion is also often used as an epithet of Helios, along with Phaeton, which ends up being the name of his mortal son, a myth that he's very famous for. He is the brother of Eos, obviously the dawn, who we've met many times through here, as well as Selene or Selene, the moon, who I think we've mentioned at least once. He is, again, other than this incident in the Odyssey, best known for the story of his son Phaeton, his mortal son Phaeton, who he allowed to drive the chariot of the sun, but who was not able to control it. He lost control, was basically threatening and burning up the earth, and so was killed when Zeus had to throw a thunderbolt at the chariot to make it stop. Is there any connection between Helios and Apollo both loving cows? No. No, they are not connected because they love cows. Lots of the gods like cows. And we see bulls and heifers sacrificed to the gods frequently. Cows, in that way, were elevated a little higher than sheep, mainly because it's a lot harder to graze them than it is to grade like sheep and goats, especially when you consider mainland Greece and a lot of how rocky, or even the islands, how rocky a lot of it is. You need kind of good pasture and good land for that, and you need all of the room to do it. So, it doesn't link a Helios and Apollo. There's lots of the gods like their cows. And it's cow. Io, yes, Io in cow form was offered to Hera as a gift. Well, not really offered. She decided it would be a gift because she knew it was a human, and she was mad at Zeus. Yeah, we covered that actually back in book 1 because we were talking about the giant Argus. That's where Hermes gets his epithet of giant killer. Yeah, not Apollo. This is not Apollo. The linking with Apollo and all of that comes much later, really during the Roman era. It's the Romans. The Romans do that one. It's the Romans on that one. Leave the beasts unharmed, your mind set on home, and you all may still reach Ithaca. Bent with hardship, true, but harm them in any way, and I can see it now. Your ship destroyed, your men destroyed as well, and even if you escape, you'll come home late, all shipmates lost, and come a broken man. And yes, note how this is a repeat of pretty much verbatim what we heard from Tiresias in the underworld, which in itself had bits verbatim taken from the oath/curse that Polyphemus threw out. Again, we like to do the repeats. It's kind of part of the style of the epic poem. Did Odysseus actually have a chance of making it home earlier without the rest of the story, or was Odysseus always fated to endure everything with no hope of stopping his crew from harming a cow? I see two paths. Essentially, that's what Tiresias... I mean, look, prior to when he... It's a bit of a chicken and egg question, but generally, by the time you get to him meeting Tiresias in the underworld, Odysseus is very different from how he was at the beginning. But Tiresias basically says, I see two paths. It's like, if you get home, if you basically don't kill the cows, you're going to get home. Boom. Awesome. But if they slaughter the cows, you screwed. So it was kind of like, I see two paths. As a lot of things with fate, they pretty much say, this is how it's all falling in line. So in terms of what do you mean have a choice of making it home earlier without the rest of the story, it would depend on where you start. Because everything happens as a result of Odysseus and or his men's choices. So man kind of always gets the choice, but fate and humanity's choice kind of are interlinked. Even though Odysseus was given two paths, the fact Polyphemus cursed him make his good choice unobtainable. Not necessarily. It doesn't. It doesn't make his good choice unobtainable because by this point he has suffered. He lost almost all of his men from the Laestrygonian encounter. He spent a year stuck here on Circe's island. He's gone down to the realm of the dead. He's come back. So yeah, he'd still be late. But it's highly implied that maybe not. Because, again, what Polyphemus does is call out for assistance from Poseidon, but he's not calling out a prophecy. It's not a prophecy. It's a request. Versus what Tiresias tells him, that's essentially almost like a prophecy. But, yeah, the doctor in KPDH. I see. Exactly. If Odie never snitched on his men, would they have reached home? Probably not. Don't forget, we do have nymphs who are on this island who would have seen. We have Helios' daughters on this island as well. Now, they find out a little quicker because Odin arcs, but it would have been found out. At those words, Dawn rose on her golden throne, and lustrous Circe made her way back up the island. I went straight to my ship, commanding all hands to take to the decks and cast off cables quickly. Oh, Snitchius, amazingly. They swung aboard at once.
They sat to the oars in ranks, and in rhythm churned the water white with stroke on stroke. And Circe, the nymph with glossy braids, the awesome one who speaks with human voice, sent us a hardy shipmate, yes, a fresh following wind ruffling up in our wake, bellying out our sail to drive our blue prow on, as we, securing the running gear from stem to stern, sat back while the wind and helmsman kept her true on course. At last, and sore at heart, I told my shipmates. Why did Athena wait 7 years to convince Zeus to get Calypso to let Odysseus go? Because she was busy. Because it was at the point where Ithaca was in trouble. Ithaca really needed him to come back. Ithaca was a true powder keg. It was time to bring him back. Not only that, it was clear that Calypso was never going to let him go. So she had to intervene to make that happen. Yeah, well, and Athena, she's always looking at, also remember, time likely moves differently to the gods. So for them, it's 7 years. For her, she was like, oh, well, I was just busy destroying Oily and Ajax. Oh, what do you mean 7 years have passed? My bad. Yeah, and there is also the fact is we are going to see Odysseus and Athena are going to have a conversation where she's just like, I knew you were getting home. Like, it was never a question in my mind. I was never that concerned. But Ithaca's in a state, and I'm speeding this shit along. No, we're done lollygagging here. She had a helmet appointment. Friends, it's wrong for only one or two to know the revelations that lovely Circe made to me alone. Did they sat the oars in ranks just mean the rows they sat in, or they assigned seats on the boat based on... no, it just means the rows they sat in. They sat in rank and file. I don't think they had, like, positions based on rank in terms of where you sat to row the ship. But good question. She was doing shenanigans with Orestes, too. Yeah, Athena was involved in many things meanwhile. I'll tell you all, so we can die with our eyes wide open now, or escape our fate and certain death together. First, she warns we must steer clear of the Sirens, their enchanting song, their meadows starred with flowers. I alone was to hear their voices, so she said. She said if you were dumb enough that you felt you needed to hear them, then yes. Nice turn of phrase there, Odysseus. No, my gosh, she said if you want to be stupid, exactly, I know. But you must bind me with tight chafing ropes, so I cannot move a muscle, bound to the spot, erect at the mast block, lashed by ropes to the mast. And if I plead, commanding you to set me free, then lash me faster, rope on pressing rope. So I informed my shipmates point by point. All the while our trim ship was speeding toward the Sirens' island, driven on by the brisk wind. But then the wind fell in an instant, all glazed to a dead calm. A mysterious power hushed the heaving swells. The oarsmen leapt to their feet, struck the sail, stowed it deep in the hold, and sat to the oarlocks. Why did Odysseus only tell him about the Sirens, none of the other warnings? Why did he wait so long to tell them about Helios' cattle? Because he doesn't trust them. He doesn't. I made the argument during Epic that part of the thing with the Scylla and Charybdis was he's trying to keep them focused to get them through. And the Helios' cattle thing, I mean, again, it's just like he does not trust them. He just does not divulge that information to them, and it's a big mistake, and it costs him later. Did Odysseus also row with this man, or did he have a different job since he's king? Interesting question. We talked a bit about the Pentaconter, one of the previous chapters back with the Phaeacians. So if you had them at full kit, it's basically a fully kitted out crew. So all oarsmen accounted for everything. You would have 52 people on board. 50 oarsmen, basically your captain and kind of like your first mate, who often also functioned as kind of like a rudder man, because they did have kind of a rudimentary rudder on them, which helped them turn. He likely was not rowing. He was in charge. By this point, because we have lost men, he probably still doesn't need to row. Because at this point, on his ship specifically, he'd have lost, what, 6 maybe 10 at most. I mean, I don't know how many from the Polyphemus cave were on his ship. So that gives him like 40 men under him. Because Eurylochus, as his first mate, likely would have been the guy who also is not rowing and standing there up beside him. He wouldn't need to row. Ooh, cupcakes are done. The windbag stunt, yeah, Eurylochus and Circe, rowing is for peasants, yeah, pretty much. He's just sort of like, I think he's also looking at right now as, let me tell them about the immediate danger that's ahead, and then by the time they're getting to the clashing rocks and to the strait, he just like doesn't say anything else. It's one of Odysseus' many failings, which is ironic given his power of words and his ability to talk with many other people and kind of get his way. It's like he sort of, when it comes to his crew, he sort of forgets about it. Is he telling this to the Phaeacians? Why didn't he make himself seem a bit less responsible? I thought he was worried about losing his chances of a fleet. How is he responsible for this? He's about to say that they mutiny. I mean, whether or not he tells them is frankly his prerogative. He doesn't have to. Just remember, he is king. He's in charge of them. He doesn't have to tell them shit. So you'd argue, how is this his fault? Again, the Phaeacians are going to likely listen and go, your crew fucking mutinied? What the fuck? What the fuck? Good diplomat, poor ship captain. It's very interesting. Oh, excuse you. The oarsmen leapt to their feet, struck the sail, stowed it deep in the hold, and sat to the oarlocks, thrashing with polished oars, frothing the water white. Now with a sharp sword I sliced an ample wheel of beeswax down into pieces, kneaded them in my 2 strong hands, and the wax soon grew soft, worked by my strength, and Helios' burning rays, the sun at high noon. And I stopped the ears of my comrades one by one. They bound me hand and foot in the tight ship, erect at the mast block, lashed by ropes to the mast, and rowed and churned the white caps stroke on stroke. We were just offshore, as far as a man's shout can carry, scudding close, when the Sirens sensed at once a ship was racing past and burst in their high, thrilling song. Come closer, famous Odysseus, Achaea's pride and glory. Moor your ship on our coast so you can hear our song. Doesn't his crew mutinying still make him look bad to the Phaeacians because it looks like he isn't someone who can command respect from his crew? No, it makes them look bad. It makes them look bad, especially the way he tells it. Don't worry, we're not at the mutiny yet, so calm down, guys. We're not there yet. We're not there yet. When you hear how it goes with the mutiny, because obviously the way it happens in the Odyssey is different from how it happens in Epic, it makes the crew look bad. Trust me. Never has any sailor passed our shores in his black craft until he has heard the honeyed voices pouring from our lips. And once he hears to his heart's content, sails on a wiser man. We know all the pains that the Greeks and Trojans once endured. Odysseus is making sure he looks like a victim of circumstance. He's not making sure. He could legitimately be. I think it's a misconception to think that he's lying about everything. I think that's a big misconception we all need to throw out of our minds. We don't know how much is exact truth, how much is embellishment. We do not know. But the poet seems to, in many ways, back up what Odysseus says. So again, this whole thing of, yeah, take it with a grain of salt, doesn't mean assume he's always lying, which seems to be the default for everyone with Odysseus. And I think that's a mistake. Anyway, yes, we have the good gossip. It's true. On the spreading plain of Troy, when the gods willed it so, all that comes to pass on the fertile earth, we know it all. So they sent their ravishing voices out across the air, and the heart inside me throbbed to listen longer. I signaled the crew with frowns to set me free. They flung themselves at the oars and rowed on harder, Paramedes and Eurylochus springing up at once to bind me faster with rope on chafing rope. Was this offer of wisdom in Odysseus specific temptation, or did the Sirens typically tempt people with this? It might have been a specific temptation to Odysseus. It's something where the idea of the siren song is unique to each person who hears it. It's part of why I've seen the sirens in terms of their song depicted in numerous ways in adaptations. One version I saw was an old film that had Kirk Douglas that actually had the sirens mimicking Penelope in terms of her calling out to him and this voice that he thought was maybe Telemachus and his mother, and it was very interesting. We don't really know specifically. But you can make an assumption to be like that because what sounds good to one person might sound like shit to somebody else. So it makes sense if maybe their song is so alluring because it sounds different to each person who hears it. But once we'd left the sirens fading in our wake, once we could hear their song no more, their urgent call, my steadfast crew was quick to remove the wax I'd used to seal their ears and loosed the bonds that lashed me. Yeah, this is the sexualization that Emily Wilson was bitching about. Yeah, I know. For those who don't know, that's somewhere deep in the Discord. We'd scarcely put that island astern when suddenly I saw smoke and heavy breakers, heard their booming thunder. The men were terrified. Oar blades flew from their grip, clattering down to splash in the vessel's wash. She lay there, dead in the water, no hands to tug the blades that drove her on. But I strode the deck to rouse my crewmen, halting beside each one with a bracing, winning word. Friends, we're hardly strangers at meeting danger, and this danger is no worse than what we faced when Cyclops penned us up in his vaulted cave with crushing force. But even from there, my courage, my presence of mind, and tactics saved us all. And we will live to remember this someday, I have no doubt. Up now. Follow my orders. All of us work as one. You men at the thwarts, lay on your oars and strike the heaving swells, thrusting and trusting that Zeus will pull us through these straits alive. You, helmsman, here's your order. Burn it in your mind. The steering arm of our rolling ship is in your hands. Keep her clear of that smoke and surging breakers. Head for those crags, or she'll catch you off guard. She'll yaw over there. You'll plunge us all into ruin. Yeah, this is a big hype up saying, ignore those crashing rocks, head for the cliffs. Again, yeah, no choice. So I shouted. They snapped to each command. No mention of Scylla. How to fight that nightmare. For fear the men would panic, desert their oars, and huddle down and stow themselves away. So this is why he's not mentioning Scylla. You're just going to panic them. They won't be able to think clearly. They won't be able to do the job that needs to be done. And because he's like, I need them focused on sailing with all their might through what's still going to be difficult sailing. Again, in the epic videos, I talked about this, where the idea is the sailing is also difficult, and he needs them focused. And they've endured so many horrors and fears that he's just like, if I lay another one on them, given what they just did here, which was here, the clashing rocks, and just drop and hide, they're going to freeze, and then we're stuck, and Scylla will take even more of our people. I need them on the move and focused. Yes, it's like pilots not telling passengers when the plane has an issue. Right, it's like panic does nothing. I need focus. But now I cleared my mind of Circe's orders, cramping my style, urging me not to arm at all. What does she know? I can totally fight Scylla. Hi, Mariana! It's like a drive-by. It's a Mariana drive-by! Ignore the barking, guys. Don't worry about it. Surely there's just dogs nearby at sea. I know, right? Then she just... yoink. I know, it's great. I donned my heroic armor, seized long spears in both my hands, and marched out on the half-deck, forward, hoping from there to catch the first glimpse of Scylla, ghoul of the cliffs, swooping to kill my men. But nowhere could I make her out, and my eyes ached, scanning that mist-bound rock face top to bottom. Yeah, Circe did tell you. She did tell you. God forbid a woman want to snack. I know, right? God forbid she be a little hangry. Now, wailing in fear, we rowed on up those straits, Scylla to the starboard, dreaded Charybdis off to port, her horrible whirlpool gulping the sea surge down, down, but then she spewed it up like a cauldron over a raging fire. All her churning depths would seethe and heave, exploding spray showering down to splatter the peaks of both crags at once. But when she swallowed, the sea surged down her gaping maw. The whole abyss laid bare, and the rocks around her roared, terrible, deafening. Bedrock showed down deep, boiling black with sand, and ashen terror gripped the men. But now, fearing death, all eyes fixed on Charybdis. Now, Scylla snatched 6 men from our hollow ship, the toughest, strongest hands I had, and glancing backward over the decks, searching for my crew, I could see their hands and feet already hoisted, flailing higher over my head. Look, wailing down at me, comrades riven in agony, shrieking out my name for one last time. Just as an angler, poised on a jutting rock, flings his treacherous bait in the offshore swell, whips his rod, hook sheathed in an oxhorn lure, and whisks up little fish, he flips on the beach break, writhing, gasping out their lives. So now they writhed, gasping as Scylla swung them up her cliff, and there, at her cabin's mouth, she bolted them down raw. Screaming out, flinging their arms toward me, lost in that mortal struggle. Of all the pitiful things I've had to witness, suffering, searching out the pathways of the sea, this wrenched my heart the most. So yeah, Scylla, the whole idea is she will just blitz attack you, and it's terrifying. It's why I didn't totally love the scary Wonka tunnel thing in Epic. I'm like, no, this is fucking terrifying. They're going through, they see Charybdis, that scares the shit out of them, but little do they know, nom 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 nom, delightful man snack, the horror that is above them. As much as I like the music of the song Scylla, I don't like the change in location and all of that. I much prefer this because it's oh, insane. It's a scary Wonka tunnel. It's just what I call it now. But now, at last, putting the rocks, Scylla, and dread Charybdis far astern, we quickly reached the good green island of the sun, where Helios, Lord Hyperion, keeps his fine cattle, broad in the bow, and flocks of purebred sheep. Still aboard my black ship in the open sea, I could hear the lowing cattle driven home, the bleating sheep, and I was struck once more by the words of the blind Theban prophet Tiresias, and Aeaean Circe too. Time and again they told me to shun this island of the sun, the joy of man. So I warned my shipmates gravely, sick at heart. Listen to me, my comrades, brothers in hardship. Let me tell you the dire prophecies of Tiresias and Aeaean Circe too. Time and again they told me to shun this island of the sun, the joy of man. Here they warned the worst disaster awaits us. Row straight past these shores, race our black ship on. So I said, and the warnings broke their hearts. But Eurylochus waded in at once, with mutiny on his mind. You're a hard man, Odysseus. Your fighting spirit's stronger than ours. Your stamina never fails. You must be made of iron head to foot. Look, your crew's half dead with labor, starved for sleep, and you forbid us to set foot on land. This island here, washed by the waves, where we might catch a decent meal again. Drained as we are, night falling fast, you'd have us desert this haven and blunder off into the mist-bound seas? Out of the night come winds that shatter vessels. How can a man escape his headlong death if suddenly, out of nowhere, a cyclone hits, bred by the south or stormy west wind? There the gales that'll tear a ship to splinters. The gods, our masters, willing or not, it seems. No. Let's give way to the dark night, set out our supper here, sit tight by our swift ship, and then at daybreak board and launch her, make for open sea. So Eurylochus urged, and shipmates cheered. Then I knew some power was brewing trouble for us. Odysseus, multiple reliable sources told us not to go here. Eurylochus, but I'm tired, Grandpa. Well, that's too damn bad. To be fair, though, navigation... Yeah, exactly. I was about to say, ironically, as much as we're shitting on Eurylochus, and he is generally a problem, he has a point. Night... Like, when it hit night, part of why these ships always sailed within sight of a coastline or some form of land was so they could dock at night. They did not sail, especially not open water, at night. Odysseus is truly asking them at this point one of the scariest things ever, and they've just gone through Scylla and Charybdis, seen crashing rocks and the Sirens. Eurylochus is actually being not that unreasonable in what he's saying. Yes, even while Odysseus is telling him, we cannot stop here. He's like, yeah, okay, no, we're not sailing the open sea at night. Yeah, night sailing was a nightmare back then. Oh, if the offhand mention of Orestes' earlier accounts of as House of Atreus, I might have been stars, not orientation. The sailing technology was so rudimentary, it doesn't matter. If like a wind hit them, they were screwed, and they didn't like to sail out of sight of land. And the problem is he's asking them to go into open water. That's the real problem. So stars navigation doesn't matter if you're asking them to sail out in open water, which they didn't like to do in the daytime, let alone then telling them to do it at night. So it was like, oh, hell no. Hell no, no, hard pass, absolutely not, pass. Okay, since we have a potential bingo, one, do we count that earlier brief sort of tangential reference of Orestes as counting a reference to the House of Atreus? Somebody make a decision, and then at that point, yeah, we can, yeah, you just passed 2 sea monsters. You want to risk pass by there? Yeah, exactly. Oh, that's beautiful. Thank you, Bennett. Someone verify if Draco's got bingo. If so, I will get her a snack and I will get him a snack. So someone, a mod who's here, please verify the bingo and let me know. Yes, of course it is. Of course it's a bingo. He's doing a beat. He's flashing the camera. You guys verify bingo while I'll go on, and then, I don't know, somebody find a way to get my attention. Where were we? Ah, yes. So Eurylochus urged, and shipmates cheered. Then I knew some power was brewing trouble for us, so I let fly with an anxious plea. Dogs do be like that, they do. Eurylochus, I'm one against all. The upper hand is yours, but swear me a binding oath, all here, that if we come on a herd of cattle or fine flock of sheep, not one man among us, blind in his reckless ways, will slaughter an ox or ram. Just eat in peace, content with the food immortal Circe gave us. No, we did not have that come up in the text. Kind of shocking. We've talked about them churning it white, but we have not had that phrase. They quickly swore the oath that I required, and once they had vowed they'd never harm the herds. Yeah, no touchy, seriously, no touchy the cows, no touchy the sheep either. He says don't touch the rams either. Like, these are all sacred animals to Helios. Like, they are his favorites. Don't touch. Not touchy. I don't believe they did, Draco, but I will look. Jeez, book 11 is so long. We have open sea. I don't see that phrase in there, so somebody would have to say, why did he not make them swear to the Styx?
Because it doesn't matter for mortals. Swearing by the river Styx only counts with gods. It's the most powerful god an immortal can make. A human does it really kind of doesn't mean anything specific. Where are the vegans when we need them? Oh, not in Greece.
Discussing ancient Greek cheating. Yeah, that's fine. The issue we were having was the wine dark sea bit. Was there no plant life they could forage? I haven't read this chapter in a while. It just seems it's a meadow, not anything in particular gets mentioned. And right now he just says, look, we have food from Circe, be content with that. But it's just wait, it's going to continue on. We're not there yet. They quickly swore the oath that I required, and once they vowed they'd never harm the herds, they moored our sturdy ship in the deep, narrow harbor, close to a fresh spring, and all hands disembarked and adeptly set about the evening meal. Once they'd put aside desire for food and drink, they recalled our dear comrades, wept for the men that Scylla plucked from the hollow ship and ate alive, and a welcome sleep came on them in their tears. But then, at the night's third watch, the stars just wheeling down. And night's third watch. So the night for the Greeks, they kind of divided it in, I think it's something like 4-hour segments in terms of their watches. Yeah, the night was divided, into 3 parts, sorry, each approximately 4 hours long. So this is the final watch of the night. Zeus, who marshals the storm clouds, loosed a ripping wind, a howling, demonic gale, shrouding over in thunderheads the earth and sea at once. And night swept down from the sky. When young dawn with her rose-red fingers shone once more, we hauled our craft ashore, securing her in a vaulted cave, where nymphs have lovely dancing rings and hold their sessions. There I called a muster, warning my shipmates, yet again, friends, we've food and drink aplenty aboard the ship. Keep your hands off of all these herds, or we will pay the price. The cattle, the sleek flocks, belong to an awesome master, Helios, god of the sun, who sees all, hears all things. So I warned, and my headstrong men complied. But for 1 whole month, the south wind blew non-stop. No other wind came up, none but the south-southeast. As long as our food and ruddy wine held out, the crew, eager to save their lives, kept hands off the herds. But then, when supplies aboard had all run dry, when the men turned to hunting, forced to range for quarry with twisted hooks, for fish, birds, anything they could lay their hands on, hunger racked their bellies. So Zeus was actively screwing them over. We don't know if Zeus is actively trying to screw them over. We don't necessarily know if this storm was sent by Zeus. Now they just kind of assume it's Zeus who marshals the thunderheads, marshals the storm clouds, that it's Zeus who's doing it. Zeus could just be throwing a storm for a different reason. It could just be a storm. He's attributing it to God. He's basically saying it's the force of nature. Everything is against us. Yes, Helios has all the gossip. It's true. You really want gossip, you go to Helios. Hunger racked their bellies. I struck inland, up the island, there to pray to the gods. If only one might show me some way home. Crossing into the heartland, clear of the crew, I rinsed my hands in a sheltered spot, a windbreak, but soon as I'd prayed to all the gods who rule Olympus, down on my eyes they poured a sweet, sound sleep. As Eurylochus opened up his fatal plan to friends. Listen to me, my comrades, brothers in hardship. All ways of dying are hateful to us mortals. True, but to die of hunger, starve to death. That's the worst of all. So up with you now. Let's drive off to the pick of Helios' sleek herds. Slaughter them to the gods who rule the skies up there. If if we ever make it home to Ithaca, native ground, erect at once a glorious temple to the sun god, line the walls with hordes of dazzling gifts. Does Helios hear and see all because the sun is always in the sky above you? Pretty much. Yeah, he spends the day traveling the sky. He's going to hear and see everything. Usually at night, most people aren't going to be out wandering the seas or doing anything weird because it's dark. You know, they don't really have lighting the way we do. They're dependent upon fire. Odie, how did you know about the parts you weren't there for? Yeah, I know. I know. But if the sun, inflamed for his long-horned cattle, means to wreck our ship and the other gods pitch in, I'd rather die at sea with one deep gulp of death than die by inches on this desolate island here. Helios bringing new meaning to hot gossip, I know. So this is a really interesting turn of phrase from Eurylochus. I'd rather die at sea with one deep gulp of breath than die by inches on this desolate island here. And he even starts it by saying that, like, all ways of dying suck. He's basically saying we're all doomed. But I'd rather die at sea in one fell blow than slowly starve to death here. So you can make an argument that maybe this is some kind of suicide mission for Eurylochus. Now, he has been warned, as they all have, by, oh buddy, drowning is so much worse than starving. Maybe he's hoping it'll go a different way than drowning. I don't know. But they have all been warned by Odysseus that, like, touch these animals, we're dead. Excuse you, you're falling off. That can't be comfortable. We're screwed, right? So you have to wonder how much of that, well, if we make it back to Ithaca, which he even says, if we ever make it home to Ithaca. So for him, by some rare shot, we make it back. Yeah, we'll basically say sorry and erect this temple, but it's a long shot, and even he knows it. He's actively doing this, seeking to just die because he can't take it anymore, which is quite interesting, honestly. He's like, I want to die now. I don't want to die slowly starving to death, because they truly believe at this point they're never getting home. So I think you can see a kind of tragedy to it. Again, as much as I say Eurylochus is a problem with a capital P, I think there is a sadness to that. And I think, oh, excuse you, do you feel better? I think this is the one potential bit of pathos, potentially, Odysseus is bestowing upon Eurylochus. Potentially, but even then, it's like, buddy. With the winds changing be a sign of you chose this path, no going back, death unlocked. Not necessarily. The weather in the Aegean and in this area of the world can be extremely stormy and kind of unpredictable. So no, like, no guarantee that that's a sign, like, that, oh, you're doomed. It's just the winds have changed. It's notoriously, the weather can be quite difficult. We're never going to make it home. You know that's true. Yeah. So he urged, and shipmates cheered again. At once they drove off the sun god's finest cattle. Close at hand, not far from the blue-prowed ship they grazed, those splendid beasts with their broad brows and curving horns. Surrounding them in a ring, they lifted prayers to the gods, plucking fresh green leaves from a tall oak for the rite, since white strewing barley was long gone in the ship. Now this is interesting. The fresh green leaves that they're picking for the rite. As they say, this is a substitute for barley, which is normally what you would scatter over the sacrificial animal. And we're also going to see them in a bit substituting water for wine in terms of the libations that they poured. And it would, like, at first it's like, oh, well, yeah, they're making use of what they have on hand. But it's also extra appropriate considering that this entire thing that they're doing, the slaughter of these sacred cattle, is a massive offense to Helios, to whom they are praying, basically. That the ritual itself is falling short of proper procedure. So it's like, oh, even this ritual is an almost bastardization of what would be considered proper procedure in terms of using the correct ingredients, because this is a bad faith, like, this is a bastardized a improper ritual because these are sacred to Helios and you should not be doing this. So it's kind of like all leading you there. Yeah, it's sacrilege. Would God cows taste better than human cows? Like holy wagyu? Like, is this Kobe? No. We don't really know because normally you wouldn't dare. Yeah, every aspect of this is a terrible idea, and even like the way that they're forced to improvise the whole thing is proving that it's a bad idea, but they are that level of desperate and basically so committed to doing this. Also, everybody start coming to an agreement potentially what accent you think I should give Helios when he shows up, because I might have an idea, and it's a terrible idea, but you know. Just thought I'd throw that out there, because we're going to hear from Helios, and we're going to need an accent. Once they'd prayed, slaughtered, and skinned the cattle, they'd cut the thigh bones out. They wrapped them round in fat, a double fold sliced clean and topped with strips of flesh. And since they had no wine to anoint the glowing victims, they made libations with water, broiling all the innards. And once they'd burned the bones and tasted the organs, hacked the rest into pieces, piercing them with spits. That moment, soothing slumber fell from my eyes, and down I went to our ship at the water's edge. But on my way, nearing the long-beaked craft, the smoky savor of roasts came floating up around me. I groaned in anguish, crying out to the deathless gods, "Father Zeus, rest of you blissful gods who never die, you with your fatal sleep, you lulled me into disaster, left on their own. Look what a monstrous thing my crew concocted." Quick as a flash, with her flaring robes, Lampetie sped the news to the sun on high that we had killed his herds, and Helios burst out in rage to all the immortals. I'm seeing a lot of Texan. I don't know how good I can do a Texan. How well can I do a Texan? No, Texan. Howdy, y'all. Okay, we're going to try our best, but I can't make a guarantee. Aussie? Good eye. I cannot do Aussie. I will say, Aussie I have deep difficulty in doing, so I can't do it. Southern twang called it. No, I was going to do a really shitty Scottish accent, but you know, I'm perfectly fine with trying for Texan. It's high noon. Snooty accent? No, I was going to make him Scottish because he's about to be real angry. I don't know why. That would be better. Okay, do you guys want Texan, or do you want me doing a shitty Texan or a shitty Scotsman? Take your pick. Do it. Do it. Oh, an angry Scot. Hold on, let's do it. We're going to do a quick poll. Start the poll. I have put in a poll. Pick your Helios accent real fast. Sir, are you okay? Hi, you're fine. Right now, Scott is winning, but not by a lot more. I guess he's going to be a really terrible Scottish accent, and I apologize to any Scots in the chat. Deeply apologize. Are you good? No, you can't have those. Hi. 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 I'm honestly... No, rip, son cowboy. I think it looks like Scott is winning. It's been pretty much heavily in the 70-something%. Like Scotland even knows where the sun is. I know, that was the irony! Doing his job, being cute. It's true. Don't you dare. No. You can't have it. It's not for you. It's not for you. That's what makes it fun here. No. Not Bill. Not Bill. Composer of great music. All right. I deeply apologise to every Scotsman in the chat. Father Zeus, the rest of you blissful gods who never die, punish them all. That crew of Laertes, his son Odysseus. What an outrage! They killed my cattle, the great joy of my heart. Day in, day out, when I climbed the starry skies, when I wheeled back down from the heights to touch the earth once more. Unless they pay me back in blood for the butchery of my herds, down I go to the house of death and blaze among the dead. But Zeus, who marshals the Thunderheads, insisted, Son, you keep on shining among the deathless gods and mortal men across the good green earth. And as for the guilty ones, soon enough, on the wine-dark sea, I'll hit their racing ship with a white-hot bolt. I'll tear it into splinters. Bingo! Wine-dark sea! It finally arrived. Yes, you got my really angry, probably super offensive Scotsman. Do we want a carrot? Do we want a carrot? You get to Snecko, because you don't like carrots. He offensively does not like carrots. We think it's because he had some teeth issues before, so he doesn't like the crunch. We will get the carrot. Oh, don't trip me up, Bennett. Please don't trip me up. I don't need to roll both ankles. I don't need another injury. Thank you so much. Come here, you cute little buggers. Okay. Do not try to steal that. You will learn a very difficult lesson in trying to steal food from Peg, Bennett. All right, Benny boy. Benny boy, you come with me. Come here, Bennett. Good girl. I know. He won't steal your carrot. He's desperately trying to trip me up, though. Peg, you look very funny with the carrot. I'm not going to lie. It's in her mouth like a cigar. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, you coming up? Are you coming up, bees? Come. Okay. Everybody needs to pick their location. Come here, Peg. Come up with your carrot. Up, up. Up, 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 up. Okay. Up, up. Oh, you've ejected it. Come here. There you go. Bennett has no manners when it comes to food. He's tried to approach her while she's eating from her bowl, and she has had to warn him off several times. He's definitely got that spaniel billy goat nature of I eat anything and everything. I always want to eat. Our family dog was a Cocker Spaniel, distantly related actually to Bennett, so we are very aware. You come to me on the day Zeus smites his crew. I know. Dog-friendly carrot cake. We could try. It does seem to be that it's like, it might be a texture thing. He, again, had some like level 2 periodontal issues. Like he had some teeth issues when my brother got him. So I know Helios going to the underworld was mostly meant to say the sun won't shine. Would this also cause problems for the underworld? I don't think it would. It would just be probably really weird more than anything else. Hades, my eyes! They'd probably all just be really confused, like, what the fuck is the sun doing down here? Like, bruh, you lost? Bennett eats like my mom's cat. Bennett is a Hoover in disguise. Peg at least will crunch and chew. But yeah, he doesn't seem to like things that are like difficult to chew, and for him I think carrots are considered too difficult because again, he's had some dental stuff before, so. Think of the vibes. I know. So basically Zeus says, bruh, bruh, I'm on it. You don't need to get your panties in a twist. I'm on it. Like, bro, I got you. Don't worry. Calm down. Or so I heard from the lovely nymph Calypso, who heard it herself, she said, from Hermes, god of guides. So basically, Odysseus is telling this story as like, so I heard it from Calypso, who heard it from Hermes, who probably witnessed the whole thing. Because, I mean, if the sun is if Helios is screaming out at Zeus, I think Hermes is probably able to hear that. Especially if he screams like I did. Just louder. Are you happy? Does that make you happy? Yeah. Bennett might like carrot puree. I could try. I've thought about it. But generally he's fine with the little training treats, and I don't really give them that many treats, especially because right now Peg's had some stuff in her blood work that she's really getting very few, not that she ever got that many human treats, but like carrots and other vegetables and fruits are pretty much the only thing. Anyway. As soon as I reached our ship at the water's edge, I took the men to task, upbraiding them each in turn. But how to set things right? We couldn't find a way. The cattle were dead already, and the gods soon showed us all some fateful signs. The hides began to crawl. The meat, both raw and roasted, bellowed out on the spits, and we heard a noise like the moan of lowing oxen. So was Hermes there for the Eurylochus speech too? He might have been. That could have been where and how Odysseus knew what happened. Also, I mean, Helios, others, the gods are around. Somebody somewhere is going to be snooping enough to get that back to the gods if they want to know, generally. Yeah, this is the haunted barbecue, which is like, that's so horrifying. Like, because these cattle don't die. They just come back to life. It's creepy as hell. Holy cow. Exactly. Yet 6 more days. My eager companions feasted on the cattle of the sun, the pick of the herds they'd driven off. But then, when Cronian Zeus brought on the 7th day, the wind, in its ceaseless raging, dropped at last. And stepping the mast at once, hoisting the white sail, we boarded ship and launched her, made for open sea. Such a bad idea. Yeah, strings bow. Barbecue's haunted. Yeah. The cook meat started crawling and moving, and they kept going for 6 whole days. I know. It's unhinged, which I'm like, at that point, you guys deserve what you get. No. Like, the horror. Cue, like, the psycho violence. Like, oh my god, no. Odie would not become vegan if only because the Greeks go, what do you mean you don't eat no meat? Yes, I will forever quote my Big Fat Greek Wedding with that bit, because it's so true. Anybody who is Greek, has Greek relatives, Greek friends, it's so true. It's so true. We boarded ship and launched her, made for open sea. But once we'd left that island in our wake, no land at all in sight. Nothing but sea and sky. Then Zeus, the son of Cronus, mounted a thunderhead above our hollow ship, and the deep went black beneath it. Nor did the craft scud on much longer. All of a sudden, killer squalls attacked us, screaming out of the west, a murderous blast, shearing the 2 forestays off so the mast toppled backward, its running tackle spilling into the bilge. The mast itself went crashing into the stern. It struck the helmsman's head and crushed his skull to pulp. And down from his deck the men flipped like a diver. His hardy spirit left his bones behind. Then, in the same breath, Zeus hit the craft with a lightning bolt and thunder. Round she spun, reeling under the impact, filled with reeking brimstone. Shipmates pitching out of her, bobbing round like seahawks, swept along by the whitecaps past the trim black hull. And the god cut short their journey home forever. But I went lurching along our battered hulk till the sea surge ripped the plankings from the keel, and the waves swirled it away, stripped bare, and snapped the mast from the decks. But a backstay made of bull's hide still held fast, and within this I lashed the mast and keel together, made them one, riding my makeshift raft as the wretched gale winds bore me on and on. At last, the west wind quit its wild rage, But the south came on at once to hound me even more, making me double back my route toward cruel Charybdis. All night long I was rushed back, and then at break of day I reached the crag of Scylla and dire Charybdis' vortex, right when the dreadful whirlpool gulped the salt sea down. But heaving myself aloft to clutch at the fig tree's height, like a bat I clung to its trunk for dear life. Not a chance for a good firm foothold there, no clambering up it either, the roots too far to reach, the boughs too high overhead, huge swaying branches that overshadowed Charybdis. But I held on, dead set, waiting for her to vomit my mast and keel back up again. How I ached for both, and back they came, late, but at last, as just the hour a judge at court who settled the countless suits of brash young claimants rises, the day's work done, and turns home for supper. That's when the timbers reared back up from Charybdis. I let go. I plunged with my hands and feet flailing, crashing into the waves beside those great beams and scrambling aboard them fast. I rowed hard with my hands right through the straits, and the Father of men and gods did not let Scylla see me, else I'd have died on the spot. No escape from death. I drifted along 9 days. Is it meant to say it is evening, or that it was after he worked a lot and was exhausted? It's after he worked a lot and is exhausted. He likely could not have held on for a whole day. Look, he's a strong Greek man, but he ain't that strong. On the 10th, at night, the gods cast me up on Odyssey, Calypso's island, home of the dangerous nymph with glossy braids, who speaks with human voice. And she took me in. She loved me. Why cover the same ground again? Just yesterday, here at this hall, I told you all the rest, you and your gracious wife. It goes against my grain to repeat a tale told once, and told so dearly, or so clearly, sorry. Whew! Everyone take a breath. That was a lot of insane sailing. That is the end of book 12. Sure he good with his thighs. Nice, I see that. Any other questions on book 12 specifically, or even books 1 to 12 while we're here? Yes, the journey is done. It's a lot of excitement. It's a lot of intensity, this chapter, because a lot of it has to do with trying to sail through extremely difficult waters, which again, that is all intensity to the Greeks. It's terrifying. Yeah, so after Zeus broke my ship, I did some shit not to die. We will miss you, great Yap. It's true. 'Tis true. 'Tis true, but it is the end of the app, as he says. I've already told you the Calypso bit. No need to repeat that. Thank you. We didn't want it repeated. I know you're excited for the suitors, Agnes. Odysseus would be totally unbeatable at 2 Truths and a Lie. It's so true. And this, book 12, Eurylochus can't shut up to save his life, literally. Yeah. One step closer to the slaughter. We are officially halfway there. Aw, thank you, Clover. I am happy to be your favorite. We are literally past the halfway point. Again, there are 24 books in the Odyssey. That was book 12. We've made it through halfway. All the rest is pretty much going to be taking place on Ithaca, briefly sort of on Scyria. Sorry, I keep wanting to call it Phaeacia because it's the island of the Phaeacians. We're still going to be on Scyria for a bit, but we're pretty much heading to Ithaca now. As they say, Ithaca at last. Almost garbage day. Oh my god, Becca. Oh my god, Becca. That's so good. Whoa, we're halfway there. It's true. It's true. Garbage day. Oh my god, that's going to live in my head rent-free now. We're taking out the trash. Oh yeah. Nearly the famous Wednesday. Poseidon, what do you have? Odysseus, a shawl. Poseidon, no. Amphitrite, oh my god. Why does he have a shawl? Gotta do some hard house cleaning soon. A spring cleaning time it is. Yeah, that's gonna be the clean out of the suitors. Yeah, Odysseus recycles and is environmentally friendly by taking out the trash. Heck, he even composts them. You got to give him a proper burial or he really burns them, but whatever. Yeah, oh my god. Greek mythology question. You know what? Go ahead, Clover. Go ahead. Bring me the Greek mythology question. I will do my best. Composts. I know, that came to me just for a moment. My great-grandfather is Hermes. One of my men died and I didn't see him and I have brown eyes. Yeah. Yes, Becca, it's true. We love Clover questions. We are ready. We sit with anticipation. And I doubt he'll wipe up all the blood. No, he would have servants like clean up the hall and the home and everything else. There are servants for reasons. Servants, slaves. Yeah, they're there for a reason. Waste not, want not. Clover's questions are delightful. Do gods have a version of prophecy? What do you mean, Andrew? Like, gods can absolutely. I mean, Zeus is very closely linked with prophecy, as is Apollo. So I'm not quite sure what the question is. Falco, if you've got a general myth question as well, type it out. Let me see it. This is question time. This is the question time. Clean up my trash? I'm not a peasant. It's true. I love my blanket. Thank you. It's a very comfy blanket. I get cold very easily, so I've always got blankets around. So, are there any myths where someone is killed rightfully, i.e., like Pallas, but instead of their parents accepting it, they get upset and wreak havoc? That's a good question. That's a very good question. No, not really. I mean, the closest you might get would be Heracles, whose wife. Yeah, that's not really like, we mean like being killed rightfully. Yeah, you can do the Heracles myth. I don't think that's quite what Clover's going for, and I don't know if that quite fits. So that's a really good question. I am trying to think, like, the closest you might, because it doesn't even work out that way. The closest you might get is some stuff that happens in the Seven Against Thieves, which is really the death of Polynices, and his brother Eteocles. These are the two sons of Oedipus. Polynices is not. I mean, technically they kill each other rightfully in combat, but they start denying Polynices a battle. The problem is that Oedipus is pretty much dead and gone by now. His wife/mom is dead, so it's really left to his uncle, and his uncle's the one who's denying the burial, and Antigone is the one who gets really upset about that. You know, if you know the Sophocles play, everything that happens there, and even Tiresias warns, you need to properly bury Polynices, or you're going to have problems. So, like, that's about as close as you can get in terms of, like, somebody dies rightfully in some form of combat, and, like, the family can't accept it and gets big mad. Because I will say, if the person has been killed rightfully or died in a way that's, not bad, the family raising hell, I mean, you could maybe have a blood feud, but there is a point where people would go, look, they died an honorable death, like, calm down. About as close as you'd get. Do we have a record of the Titans actually being worshipped before the Olympians, or our first knowledge of them backstory from things like Hesiod? Likely, in terms of evidence of them being worshipped, you have things like Helios and like who are children of Titans. You didn't necessarily have temples to the Titans in the way that you did to the Olympians. So archaeological evidence, I'm pretty sure there is, but in terms of if you're thinking like temples and statues and the like, probably not so much. If only because by the time we're getting to remaining structures that we've dug up through archaeological evidence, it's pretty much all stuff involving the Olympians, and that's post the time period of Hesiod. And even if you're going prior to that, Hesiod is essentially telling you stuff that they kind of, we assume, already knew. Like, Hesiod is writing down what's essentially already in play. So it's not like Hesiod necessarily invents that. We're a little chicken egg moment there. but we certainly don't have any archaeological evidence of them having structures similar to what was there with the Olympians. And part of that could just be that it's so far back in the worship period, or maybe they were worshipped differently, that, you know, we just don't have anything left. So we are at the mercy of what we have left. Timotheus, I see you with that question, but I saw one before it, and I'm going to get to my Latin lesson in a moment. Timotheus is here. Might be getting a habit to give all the suitors a coin so they could cross the stick. Oh, Judas. They're not Coins for crossing the river Styx are not a thing. There is no currency in Bronze Age Greece that is coin related. We've talked about this many times in other places. I'm bringing it up now, and I'm teasing. No, the whole coins in the mouth over the eyes. No, not in Bronze Age Greece. There is no common currency. It's mostly a barter system, right? So no. And the myth about the Ares' daughter being assaulted. No, that wouldn't count, because her being assaulted is like, that's not right. He's mad about her being assaulted. It's not, Poseidon gets mad, but he doesn't like raise hell about it. Like, the whole point is that Ares wants to get punishment, and they're trying to figure out, was that a just killing, was it not? Like, everything plays out and is fine in that case. It's very, and looking at the gods is always their own thing. Does she speak Latin? Wow. I studied Latin, so cum et Odyssea et alia poemata carmina essent nonne hac de causa, et Tiresias et Circe dixerunt istem versibus, reris tuos versus istem notis musicis cantus sua et aetate. Cum et Odyssea. Et alia poemata. Different point. What is the cause of Tiresias and Circe? I always go and check like random words because my vocabulary is trash. I think I know what we're saying, but I'm double checking one word, and my dictionary's in the other room. So if I'm, because I know you're talking about this in relation to song. Speaking in, okay. So if I got this right, Timotheus, you'll have to tell me. You're correct in saying that, like, because these are both also kind of songs, these poems were essentially, they had music accompaniment, they were kind of considered songs. Did Tiresias and Circe speak of this prophecy, the cause of all of this in the same verses? So, like, because Circe repeats verbatim what Tiresias says, do I think they were, like, basically accompanied by the same music, like the same musical notes? I'm assuming that's sort of what you're asking. Which is, that's a good question, actually. Do I think they would probably have the same kind of musical, like, notes, and would they be sung kind of almost identical in the same way they get repeated? That would be a really cool move, and I wonder if that was part of the aspect of how, you know, we do this repetition. If you sing it in the same melody, if you will, or with the same music, that would be really cool. I don't know, but I kind of hope they did. If that's what your question was asking, and I really hope I'm correct, because I had to look up at least one or two words there to try and make sure I was on the right track there. Would Eupeithes count as parent raising hell over Antinous' death? We were already told that was going to happen, and it's not really raising hell because it all fizzles out anyway. Raising hell would be like, oh, sorry, she had a toy, and I was like in panic going, wait, they're right behind me. Is it parent raising hell? Kinda, but it fizzles out to a nothing burger. Like, I think raising hell, I think like truly raising hell. He does, but it's not a nothing burger, which we're, again, careful, that's the end of the Odyssey. General Greek myth question, why do so many refer to Roman Hercules? Refer to Roman Hercules instead of Heracles amongst other Greek figures like Zeus? Oh, like, why do they use the Romanization MB and CD, are you asking like why do they use the Romanized name as opposed to why do they use as opposed to using the Greek version of the name Heracles? Probably because Hercules just became far more common because again, the Romans and Latin. Recte tenuisti quid rogaram. Yeah, because Hercules just became so much more common. You're right. What? Yay! I was gonna say, I figured I had it right. I was making sure my grammar was correct. Yeah, you could definitely look first, see if they choose to do that. But there's also the element of like each person who performed it would, as much as you keep the meter the same, it's in dactylic hexameter, it's a pretty set meter, the song might change behind it. Like somebody might be doing a different melody behind it. So that kind of comes to an element of creative choice, I imagine, which is kind of neat. But yes, I think the issue is just that the Latinized version of the name Hercules became more common, which is kind of sad because the name Heracles is like so deeply tied to the character and explains that character so much, like Hera and Cles, and like how and the way the Hera part breaks down. It's not just Hera the goddess. I mean, it is, but her name breaks down to Hera and Hora, and then Cles being Kleos. Like there's an amazing, incredible breakdown in there, which just tells you even more about the hero. His name is so significant, and it's so much cooler than just calling him Hercules. Which I get, Hercules, I guess, for some people rolls off the tongue better. I really don't know why the Latinized version of that became more popular. I really don't know, but it is a shame. Because I don't think it truly captures the level to which, like, Heracles' name lets you know off the bat, that is the guy. He is the guy. He is the hero of heroes. Yeah, he's the guy. He is the hero of heroes. He is... yeah, Disney did that, but there was also the TV show, the live-action TV show that was around. Like, Hercules had been used a lot even prior to that, so Disney didn't necessarily... Disney's not really to blame for that one. But yeah, Heracles is the guy. We call the planets by their Greek names. Oh, really? That's awesome. I like that. As far as there was no just a man comparing what Diomedes did to force Odi to Troy and what Odi did to Astyanax. Diomedes didn't force Odysseus to Troy. I don't understand what Sobalucci, what do you mean Diomedes did? I mean, there was a messenger from Agamemnon who was sent. It's not Diomedes. And that messenger is the one who calls Odysseus' bluff that makes him have to go to Troy. And Diomedes and Odysseus are, I mean, there's many different versions of this. Later, potentially find a way to get that guy punished. Maybe unlawfully. But yeah, Palamedes. How involved was Hera with the Heracles naming process? Did she know before it happened, or did he do it to please her? So Heracles was not renamed that. He wasn't even named that. It was his mother and his human fathers, because obviously his father is Zeus, Alcmene and Amphitrite, who named him that because they knew Hera would be pissed, and they were trying to make her not mad. She was still big mad, so she did not have a part in that, and it did not soothe her fury. I was going to say. 450 BC. That is very cool. That is very cool. So that would be the, I think that's the classical era. 450? It might be really late archaic, but I think that's classical era. Let me see. Archaic age. 8th century to 480. So that is very early classical era. Because we say the archaic age or the archaic era ends at about 480, which was the Persian invasion of Greece. So 450, that's the classical era, by which point, yes, you start seeing currency coming about. But obviously the Odyssey is taking place in the Bronze Age, so nopey nope. Also the Ashmolean, ha ha ha, my love.